After years of enduring her husband's family's passive-aggressive cruelty, a pregnant woman finally chooses herself over tradition. One Christmas away from the chaos changes everything. But will her husband stand beside her or cling to old patterns? Before going to forward in the story, please subscribe my channel and like and share this video. I used to think Christmas was something you survived. That's the best way I can describe it. For 15 years of marriage, Christmas was not warmth or joy or comfort. It was tension. It was performance. It was walking on glass while smiling politely. It was rehearsing neutral facial expressions in the bathroom mirror so I wouldn't look too sensitive. It was swallowing comments that burned on the way down. And this year, I didn't go. I am 5 months pregnant. Even writing that still feels fragile, like glass. I haven't fully allowed myself to relax into it yet. When I first found out, I was standing in the bathroom holding the test in shaking hands. I remember laughing and crying at the same time. My husband hugged me, and for a moment, it felt like the world shifted into something softer. 2 days later, his nephew punched me in the stomach. Hard. It happened during a Sunday visit. No warning, no buildup. He just ran at me and hit me square in the belly. I folded over from the shock more than the pain. Everyone froze for half a second. Then my sister-in-law laughed nervously and said, "Oh, he's going through a phase." A phase? I remember looking at her, waiting for something else. An apology? A correction? Discipline? Something. Nothing came. My husband helped me sit down, whispering that it was okay, that kids do weird things, that he didn't understand pregnancy. I kept my hand over my stomach the rest of the visit. That was November. In early December, my mother-in-law called. Her voice was syrupy sweet in that way that always makes my stomach tighten. "Well, we've noticed that the phase hasn't quite passed," she said. "And since you're expecting, we think it might be safer if you sit this Christmas out. We just wouldn't want any accidents." Sit this Christmas out? Like I was a substitute teacher who wasn't needed this semester. I waited for my husband to speak. He was quiet. Later that night, on December 21st, I came home from work and found him packing a suitcase. He looked up quickly, reading my face. "Oh," he said, "you wanted me to stay?" It wasn't even accusatory. It was worse than that. It was confused. Like the idea hadn't crossed his mind. I stood there, my coat still on, my hands frozen around my bag. "No," I said finally. "You can go." He smiled sheepishly, almost relieved. And just like that, I was uninvited to Christmas, and he was going anyway. I don't know what hurt more, that they excluded me or that he accepted it so easily. The 23rd felt quiet, too quiet. I expected to cry. I expected to feel abandoned. Instead, I felt something else. Stillness. My colleague, Margaret, she's older, unmarried, no children, had overheard me talking about the situation at work. She doesn't pry, but she listens carefully. "You shouldn't be alone," she said gently. "If you'd like, we could have dinner together. Nothing fancy, just company." I almost said no out of habit, out of politeness, out of that strange instinct to minimize my own needs. But something inside me was tired. "I'd like that," I said. Christmas morning, I woke up at 10. 10! For 15 years, Christmas morning meant waking at 6:30 sharp because breakfast was served at 7, and being late was disrespectful. Even if you were sick, even if you barely slept, even if you drove 3 hours the night before. This year, I woke up slowly. The house was warm. The silence felt peaceful instead of heavy. I made tea. I ate toast. No one commented on how much butter I used. No one looked at my stomach and said, "Careful, you don't want to get too big." No one mentioned how some minorities have too many kids and then quickly added, "Oh, but not you, of course. You're one of the good ones." I used to laugh weakly at those comments, pretend they were misunderstandings. My husband would squeeze my knee under the table, his silent signal to let it go. He always said they didn't mean it. He would whisper later, "They're just old. They don't know how it sounds." But they knew enough to say it every year. At Margaret's house, there was no schedule, no performance. She made roast chicken and simple vegetables. She asked me what I felt like eating. When I said I was craving mashed potatoes, she made extra. We watched old movies, we laughed, she told me stories about traveling in her 20s. I told her about my childhood back home, things I stopped sharing with my in-laws because they called my food interesting while wrinkling their noses. "Your culture sounds beautiful," Margaret said sincerely. No one had said that to me in years. We didn't exchange expensive gifts. She gave me a soft blanket for the baby. I cried when I opened it. Not because of the blanket, because she thought of my baby as something warm and hopeful, not a genetic experiment to determine eye color. My mother-in-law had recently said, "Well, I don't think the baby will have blue eyes." As if that was a tragedy, as if biology was a personal insult, as if my brown eyes were a defect. That Christmas evening, I lay on Margaret's couch with my feet up, feeling my baby move gently. For the first time since I got pregnant, I wasn't tense. I wasn't bracing for something. I wasn't rehearsing explanations. I wasn't shrinking. I felt safe. When my husband came home 2 days later, he looked exhausted, anxious. He hugged me too tightly, like he expected me to be crying, but I wasn't. "How was it?" he asked cautiously. "It was really good," I said honestly. He blinked. "Good?" "Yes. I had a wonderful time." I watched his face carefully. Something flickered there. Relief didn't come. Instead, his shoulders stiffened. He started apologizing almost immediately. "In hindsight, maybe I should have stayed. If I didn't go, they would have been so disappointed. You know how they are." "Yes, I do know how they are." He kept talking, explaining, justifying, but underneath it all was something else. Fear. Because for the first time in 15 years, I hadn't cried on the drive home. For 15 years, every Christmas ended the same way. Me in the passenger seat, silent tears sliding down my face, while he gripped the steering wheel saying, "They didn't mean it like that." And now, I was calm. Happy. Lighter. He sensed it. He sensed that something had shifted. I told him everything was fine, and technically it was. But something inside me had cracked open. I spent Christmas with a woman who has no family and no husband, and she was happier than I have been in years. That realization has been sitting in my chest. Not loud, not dramatic, just present. Like a quiet truth I can't ignore anymore. For 15 years, I thought enduring was love. I thought swallowing discomfort was maturity. I thought protecting him from choosing between me and his family was kindness. But now I'm pregnant, and the idea of my child being raised in that environment makes my chest tighten in a way I can't dismiss. He keeps looking at me like I'm about to say something irreversible. Maybe he's right. Because the real question isn't why he went. It's why I stayed silent for so long. And why, for the first time in my marriage, being alone felt like freedom. The strange thing about clarity is that it doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't slam doors or flip tables. It doesn't shout. It just settles in quietly and refuses to leave. After Christmas, our house felt different to me. Not physically. The furniture was the same, the walls the same soft color we picked together when we first moved in. But emotionally, something had shifted in the air. I started noticing things I had trained myself not to notice, like how quickly he checks his phone when his mother calls, the way his shoulders rise slightly, almost defensively, before he answers. The careful tone he uses, soft, agreeable, never challenging. I used to think that was kindness. Now I see it as fear. A few days after he got back, we were eating dinner when his phone buzzed. His mother's name lit up the screen. I glanced at me before answering. "Hi, Mom." I could hear her voice faintly through the speaker, cheerful, loud, already mid-story. He laughed at something she said. Then I heard it. "Well, we missed her, of course," she said. "But it was probably best. You never know with children." Children. As if I had been the problem. As if I was the unsafe element. He didn't correct her. He just said, "Yeah." Yeah. That single word sat in my chest like a stone. After he hung up, he looked at me cautiously. "She says hi." I nodded. "Did you tell her you had a good time?" he asked carefully. "Yes." He hesitated. "And? And what?" "Nothing, just she was worried you might feel excluded." Excluded? That word almost made me laugh. I didn't feel excluded. I felt relieved. But I didn't say that. Instead, I asked something I've never asked before. Did anyone say anything about me not being there? He paused just long enough. "Not really." "That's not an answer." "Not really?" I repeated. He sighed. "Dad made a joke, and my sister said it was a shame you're so sensitive about kids being kids." Sensitive. The word felt familiar, comfortable even. I've worn it for years. Too sensitive, too emotional, too reactive. I used to accept that label. It was easier than arguing. But this time, something inside me resisted it. Is it sensitive to not want to be punched in the stomach while pregnant? I asked quietly. He immediately looked distressed. "Of course not. That's not what she meant." "What did she mean?" He opened his mouth. Closed it. "She just thinks you take things personally." I felt my jaw tighten. Of course I take them personally. They are personal. The comments, the looks, the exclusions, they're aimed at me. But in that house, I've always been the outsider, the one who needs thicker skin, the one who should understand that it's just how they are. That night, after he fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I thought about the first time I met his parents. I thought about all the times I swallowed discomfort. And then I imagined something new. What if I didn't? What if next time someone made a comment about my accent, I said, "Why would you say that?" What if they joked about minorities ruining things, I said, "That's racist." What if I stopped protecting him from the fallout? The idea both thrilled and terrified me, because I know what would happen. There would be tension. There would be arguments. He would be forced to choose between smoothing things over and standing beside me fully. And that's the part I don't know the answer to. The next weekend, we went grocery shopping together. A simple, normal activity. But even there, I felt the shift inside myself. In the produce aisle, an older man brushed past me roughly with his cart. I instinctively stepped back, hand over my stomach. My husband immediately said, "Hey, watch it." The man mumbled something and moved on. It was small, but I noticed. He can speak up. He just doesn't, not when it comes to them. On the drive home, I asked him something carefully. "Why didn't you stay with me for Christmas?" He gripped the steering wheel. "I told you, I didn't think you wanted me to." "That's not what I asked." Silence filled the car. After a long moment, he said, "If I hadn't gone, it would have been a whole thing." "A whole thing how?" "They would have felt like you were pulling me away, like you were making me choose." I looked out the window. "I didn't make you choose," I said softly. "You didn't." But that's exactly the problem. For 15 years, I've made it easy for him not to choose. I've absorbed the discomfort so he wouldn't have to confront it. I've been the flexible one, the understanding one, the patient one. But pregnancy does something strange to your perspective. It sharpens it. Every decision now feels connected to the future, and I don't want my child learning that love means shrinking. A few nights later, Margaret invited me over for tea again. My husband encouraged it. "I'm glad you made a friend," he said. There was something tentative in his voice. At Margaret's kitchen table, I told her more than I planned. About the comments, the schedules, the politics, the punch. She listened quietly, her hands wrapped around her mug. "You know," she said gently, "peace shouldn't feel like a guilty pleasure." That sentence has been echoing in my head ever since. Peace shouldn't feel like a guilty pleasure. But it does. When I wake up without dread, I almost feel like I'm betraying something. When I imagine skipping future holidays, my first instinct is guilt. Not fear of conflict. Guilt. As if I owe them access to me. As if marriage means unlimited tolerance. When I got home that evening, my husband was sitting on the couch, scrolling but not really looking at his phone. "Did you have a good time?" "Yes." He nodded slowly. Then he said something unexpected. "You've seemed different." I sat down across from him. "How?" "You've been calmer, but also distant." There it was. He's not just panicking because I'm happy. He's panicking because I'm not clinging. I'm not pleading for validation. I'm not spiraling after family visits. I'm steady. And steadiness can look like detachment when someone is used to managing your distress. "I've just been thinking," I said. "About what?" "About what I want things to look like when the waity comes." His face tightened slightly. "What does that mean?" "It means I don't want our child growing up thinking those comments are normal." He leaned back, defensive reflex kicking in. "They don't mean harm. Intent doesn't erase impact." He went quiet. We've never spoken this directly before. Usually, I soften my words, add disclaimers, smile to show I'm not attacking. This time, I didn't. "Is it sensitive to not want to be punched in the stomach while pregnant?" I asked quietly. He immediately looked distressed. "Of course not. That's not what she meant." "What did she mean?" He opened his mouth, closed it. "She just thinks you take things personally." I felt my jaw tighten. Of course I take them personally. They are personal. The comments, the looks, the exclusions, they're aimed at me. But in that house, I've always been the outsider, the one who needs thicker skin, the one who should understand that it's just how they are. The first boundary didn't come with shouting. It came with a calendar. In early January, his mother sent a message in the family group chat. "Sunday lunch next week, everyone here at 12 sharp. We'll celebrate the new year properly." 12 sharp. Somehow, even through a screen, I could feel the weight of that phrase. My husband looked at me from across the couch. He didn't say anything at first, just waited. That waiting used to be invisible to me. Now I see it clearly. He waits to measure my reaction, to decide how much smoothing he'll need to do. "Do you want to go?" he asked carefully. Not, "Are we going?" Progress, I guess. I placed my hand on my stomach, not dramatically, just naturally. "No," I said. The word felt solid, simple. He blinked. "No?" "No, I don't." Silence filled the room. It wasn't explosive, it was tense in a quieter way, like air before rain. "They'll ask why," he said after a moment. "Tell them the truth." He shifted. "Which truth?" "That I'm not comfortable being around someone who hit me, and I'm not comfortable being around people who dismissed it." His jaw tightened slightly. Not angry, anxious. "It was one incident," he automatically said. I held his gaze. One incident is enough. He looked down at his phone, thumb hovering over the screen. "I can go alone," he offered. There it was again, the middle ground, the compromise that keeps everything appearing stable. "I can," I said calmly, "but I won't." He studied my face like he was trying to see if I was bluffing. I wasn't. The house didn't feel angry. That's what surprised me most. It wasn't filled with shouting or slammed doors. It wasn't dramatic. It was softer than that, heavier. Like something important was hanging in the air, waiting to be acknowledged. For years, our conflicts had followed a pattern. I would get hurt, he would reassure. I would cry, he would promise to talk to them. Then the next holiday would arrive and nothing would really change. This time, I wasn't crying. And without my tears to manage, he didn't know what to do. The next few days, he was extra attentive. He made breakfast, he rubbed my feet without me asking, he checked in constantly. "Are you okay?" "Yes." "Are you mad at me?" "No." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." But what I didn't say was this: "I'm thinking." He mistook my calm for forgiveness. It wasn't that. It was assessment. I was watching him more carefully now. Not judging, just observing. I wanted to see who he was when he wasn't reacting to my pain. On Wednesday evening, his father called. He didn't take the call in the kitchen this time. He stayed in the living room, maybe because he didn't want to look like he was hiding anything. I could hear every word. His father's voice was louder than usual. "You're letting her divide the family." My husband stiffened. "She's not dividing anyone. She refuses to come to a simple lunch. She doesn't feel comfortable. With a child? Don't be ridiculous." My husband glanced at me. For 15 years, that glance meant, "Help me soften this." This time, I didn't move. There was a long pause on the phone. Then my husband said something he has never said before. "She was pregnant when he hit her." The room felt like it tilted slightly. Silence on the other end. Then his father scoffed. "You're exaggerating." "I'm not." It wasn't a loud defense. It wasn't fiery, but it was clear. After he hung up, he looked shaken. "They think you're manipulating me," he said quietly. I almost smiled. "I'm not that powerful." He didn't laugh. "They think you're isolating me from my roots." "Your roots shouldn't require me to tolerate disrespect," I said gently. He sat down heavily on the couch. "I don't know how to fix this." That word, fix, revealed everything. He still sees this as something to repair without dismantling. But some systems can't be fixed without changing them completely. "You don't have to fix it," I said. "You just have to decide what kind of husband and father you want to be." He looked at me like that was an unfair question. "I can be both," he insisted. "Maybe," I said, "but not by staying neutral." Neutral. That word has defined our marriage more than love ever has. He has lived in the middle, between me and them, carefully distributing comfort so no one feels too uncomfortable. But neutrality always costs someone something, and it has been costing me. That night, I dreamed about our baby for the first time, clearly, not just vague shapes or feelings, but a small child standing in his parents' dining room, listening to voices at a table. In the dream, someone said something cruel disguised as humor. The child looked at me, waiting to see what I would do. I woke up with my heart racing. When I told him about the dream over breakfast, he listened quietly. "You think I wouldn't protect our child?" he asked softly. "I think you've never had to choose between protecting someone and pleasing your parents." That hit him harder than I expected. He stood up abruptly and walked to the window. "You don't understand what it's like." Right, I don't. But I understand what it's like to be the outsider. He turned back toward me. They're not monsters. I know. They love me. I know. They'll love the baby. I held his gaze. Love without respect can still hurt. He didn't respond. Later that afternoon, his sister called. He stepped outside to take it. When he came back in, his expression was different. Less defensive, more unsettled. She said something. He began slowly. What? She said you've always looked down on them, that you think you're better. I felt a strange calm wash over me. I've spent 15 years trying to fit in. If that looked like superiority, that says more about them than me. He sat beside me, closer than before. She also said, if you're this sensitive now, imagine when the baby comes. There it was again, sensitive, as if boundaries are emotional instability. Do you think I'm sensitive? I asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. I think you've been patient, he said finally. That was new. Not sensitive, not dramatic, patient. Something in my chest softened. And maybe I took advantage of that, he added. That softened it more. We sat in silence for a while. Then he said something that shifted everything slightly. I'm scared. Of what? That if I confront them directly, it'll break something permanently. I nodded. It might. And you're okay with that? I thought about Margaret's quiet kitchen, the blanket she gave me, the peace I felt on Christmas morning. Yes, I said honestly, if what breaks is built on me shrinking. He closed his eyes briefly. I don't want to lose them. I don't want to lose myself. That landed between us like a truth neither of us could avoid. The next Sunday, he didn't go. He didn't announce it dramatically. He just sent a message that we'd be staying home. The response was immediate. His mother called 3 times. His father sent a long text about loyalty. His sister wrote, I hope you're happy. He didn't answer right away. He sat next to me on the couch, staring at his phone like it was a bomb. I feel sick, he admitted. I reached for his hand. I know. You don't feel guilty? He asked. I thought about it carefully. No, I said. And that's when he realized the real shift. I'm not fighting him. I'm not begging. I'm not threatening. I'm simply steady. And steadiness is harder to argue with than emotion. He put his phone face down on the table. For now, he said quietly, I'm choosing you. Tears filled my eyes, not dramatic ones, not broken ones, just full ones. Not me, I corrected softly. Us. He nodded. But I can still see the fear behind his decision, because choosing once is not the same as choosing consistently. And this is only the beginning. For a few days after he didn't go that Sunday, everything was quiet. Too quiet. No calls, no texts, no passive-aggressive, hope you're feeling better messages. Just silence. I knew his family well enough to understand silence wasn't acceptance. It was strategy. My husband tried to act normal. He went to work, came home, asked about my day. He rubbed lotion on my stomach at night and talked softly to the baby like nothing outside our walls was shifting. But I could see it in him. The waiting, the brace for impact. It came on Thursday evening. His mother didn't call this time. She showed up. No warning, no message, just a sharp knock on the door right after dinner. He froze when he heard it. I was on the couch with a blanket over my legs. The baby had been moving a lot that day, little rolling sensations that made me both smile and tear up at the same time. He looked at me like a child who knows what's behind the door, but hopes it isn't. I nodded once. Open it. When he did, her voice carried into the living room. So this is what we're doing now? Ignoring family? She stepped inside without being invited. I hadn't seen her since Christmas. She looked the same, perfectly styled, controlled, but her smile was thinner. She glanced at me. How are you feeling? She asked overly sweet. Healthy, I replied. She nodded once and turned back to her son. You didn't answer our calls. I needed space, he said quietly. From your parents? From the pressure. Her lips tightened. You've changed. He didn't answer. Her eyes flicked toward me again. I assume this is coming from you. There it was, the villain role. For 15 years, I would have rushed to smooth this. Oh, no, it's not like that. It's just hormones. I'm probably overthinking. But I didn't. I'm not asking him to cut you off. I'm asking for basic respect. She laughed softly. We have always respected you. The word always almost made me shake my head. Respect doesn't include dismissing violence, I said calmly. Her expression sharpened. He's 6. And I was pregnant. Silence. My husband stood between us physically now, though I don't think he realized it. She turned to him again. Are you going to let her talk to me like this? That sentence revealed more than she intended. Let, as if I required permission. He swallowed. She's not being disrespectful, he said quietly. She feels attacked by a child. She felt
The quiet didn't last. It never does when people are used to control. For about a week after his message to his sister, there was nothing but distant silence. No calls, no invitations, no subtle digs disguised as concern. And strangely, that silence felt cleaner than the old kind. My husband still checked his phone more often than usual, but he wasn't pacing anymore. He wasn't rehearsing explanations out loud. He wasn't asking me every hour if I was upset. Something inside him had settled. Until Saturday morning. His father called. He answered this time without hesitation. Hi, Dad. I could hear the tension even before his father started speaking. His voice was calm, but there was something sharp under it, like a blade wrapped in cloth. I think we need to talk like men, his father said. That sentence alone told me everything. Translation: this is about control. They spoke for nearly 20 minutes. I stayed in the kitchen, not eavesdropping intentionally, just not hiding either. At first, his father tried reason. We've always been close to us. We raised you better than this. She's turning you against your own blood. Then he shifted tactics. If you let her isolate you now, it'll only get worse after the baby. She'll keep the child from us. She doesn't understand loyalty. Each sentence was carefully designed to plant doubt. I watched my husband's back while he listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't defend immediately. He just listened. Years ago, that listening would have ended in surrender. This time, it ended differently. I'm not being isolated, he said calmly. I'm setting boundaries. There was a pause on the other end. Boundaries? His father repeated, almost amused. Yes. You don't set boundaries with family. That's exactly who you set them with. That response surprised even me. His father's voice hardened. So this is how it's going to be? You embarrass us? You let your wife accuse us of raising a violent child? She didn't accuse you of that. She implied it. She said dismissing it was wrong. And she's right. The word right hung there like a declaration. I saw his shoulders tense, not from fear, but from standing firm. His father exhaled loudly into the phone. You think you're better than us now. No, my husband said. I just think my wife and child deserve respect. There it was again. Not emotional, not angry. Clear. After he hung up, he stood still for a moment. I walked into the living room quietly. How bad? I asked. He ran a hand over his face. He said if we continue down this path, we shouldn't expect them to just welcome us back whenever we feel like it. The old threat. Conditional belonging. And how do you feel about that? I asked gently. He looked at me. Really looked at me. I feel tired, he admitted. Tired of what? Managing their emotions. That was the first time he had ever said it out loud. Managing. That's exactly what he's done his whole life. He sat beside me. You know what the worst part is? He said quietly. What? I always thought I was protecting you by softening things. I reached for his hand. I know. But I wasn't protecting you. I was protecting myself from conflict.
The honesty in that sentence felt heavy and important. I don't need you to fight them every time they say something stupid, I said softly. I just need you to not pretend it's harmless. He nodded slowly. I see that now. Later that afternoon, his sister sent a long message in the family group chat. It was dramatic, emotional, full of words like heartbroken and betrayal. She wrote that her son is confused and hurt because Auntie doesn't like him anymore. That almost made me laugh. Children don't invent narratives like that on their own. That was planted. My husband read the message carefully. Then he typed, "This isn't about a child being disliked. It's about adults taking responsibility." He didn't ask me what to write. He didn't show it to me first. He just sent it. And in that small action, I saw the shift solidify. His sister responded instantly, "You've changed." He didn't reply, because sometimes change is the point. That evening, we took a walk around the neighborhood. It was cold, but the air felt clean in my lungs. He walked slower than usual, matching my pace carefully. "Do you regret marrying into my family?" he asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard. "No," I said honestly. He looked surprised. "I regret tolerating things I shouldn't have," I added, "but I don't regret you." He swallowed. "I should have seen it sooner." "Maybe," I said gently, "but we're seeing it now." We stopped near a small park bench. He sat down and looked at me seriously. "If they give us an ultimatum," he said, "I'm choosing you." There was no panic in his voice this time, no shakiness, just clarity. "And if they apologize?" he asked. "Then we move forward carefully, with boundaries." He nodded. The word no longer seemed foreign to him. It seemed necessary. When we got home, there was one final message waiting. From his mother. "I hope one day you understand how much pain you're causing." He read it once, then he put the phone down. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, he said something that would have been impossible a month ago. "Her pain is not our responsibility." I felt tears fill my eyes again, not from sadness, from relief. Because this isn't just about holidays anymore. It's about patterns. It's about generational habits. It's about teaching our child that love and respect are not opposites. The family hasn't apologized. They haven't admitted fault. They may never. But the dynamic has changed. Not because I fought harder, not because I screamed louder, but because I stopped shrinking, and because he finally stopped standing in the middle. For the first time in 15 years, I don't feel like an outsider in my own marriage. I feel like a partner. And that, more than any perfect Christmas, feels like the beginning of something healthier. The unexpected event came on a Tuesday morning. I was at home answering a few work emails when my husband called. He almost never calls during work hours unless something is wrong. "Hey," he said, voice tight. "Dad's in the hospital." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Chest pain. They're running tests. Mom wants us there." Us. Of course she did. I sat down slowly. "How serious?" "They don't know yet." There it was, the pole of crisis. Emergencies have a way of resetting conflicts. They blur boundaries. They make everything feel smaller compared to mortality. "I'm coming home," he said quickly. "We can go together." I could already feel the emotional weight forming. If we didn't go, we'd be heartless. If we did go, everything unresolved would be sitting in that hospital room with us. "Okay," I said calmly. "We'll go." He paused. "You're sure?" "Yes, because boundaries aren't about punishment. They're about respect. And someone being in the hospital isn't the same as tolerating mistreatment." When we arrived, the waiting room was tense and quiet. His sister was there, pacing. His mother was sitting stiffly, hands folded tightly in her lap. The moment she saw us, her expression flickered. Surprise first, then something guarded. "You came," she said. "Yes," my husband replied, simply. No drama, no speeches, just presence. His sister gave me a quick nod, not warm, not cold, just cautious. For a few minutes, no one mentioned the conflict. Illness has its own gravity. It makes small talk feel absurd. After about an hour, a doctor came out. It wasn't a heart attack. Severe stress, high blood pressure. He would need monitoring, lifestyle changes, less agitation. Less agitation. The irony wasn't lost on me. When they allowed visitors, we went in together. His father looked smaller in the hospital bed, weaker. It's strange how vulnerability changes the atmosphere. He looked at his son first. "You didn't have to come," he said. "I wanted to," my husband replied. Then his father looked at me. For the first time in years, there was no smirk, no subtle challenge in his eyes, just fatigue. "How are you feeling?" he asked. It was simple, not sarcastic, not layered, just quiet. "Healthy," I said again. He nodded slowly. No commentary, no political jokes, no backhanded compliments. Just quiet. We didn't stay long. On the way out, his mother pulled my husband aside. I didn't hear everything, but I caught fragments. Stress. Family shouldn't be divided. This is hurting him. When we got to the car, he exhaled deeply. "She thinks this conflict caused his blood pressure spike," he said. I looked at him carefully. "And what do you think?" He didn't answer immediately. "I think years of unmanaged stress probably did," he said finally. That was growth. Back home, we sat at the kitchen table. "Do you feel guilty?" I asked gently. "A little," he admitted, but not for not setting boundaries. He looked tired, but not shaken. Mom suggested we all sit down together, talk it through. No accusations. I raised an eyebrow slightly. "No accusations?" That's what she said. I knew what that likely meant. Polite words, no real accountability. "Do you want to?" he asked. The old version of me would have said no immediately. But
The weeks after that dinner felt cautious. Not warm, not suddenly close, just careful. His mother texted occasionally, short messages, neutral ones. "How are you feeling? Doctor appointments going well?" No commentary about eye color, no jokes about culture. His sister sent a photo once of her son drawing a picture. No mention of me, no passive comments. It was restrained. And restraint, I realized, is sometimes the first sign of effort. But I didn't relax completely, because real change isn't about what people say when things are calm. It's about what they do when something tests them. That test came sooner than expected. I went into early labor at 34 weeks. It started as dull cramps that didn't go away, then tightening, then fear. My husband drove faster than I've ever seen him drive, one hand gripping the wheel, the other holding mine. "I'm here," he kept saying. At the hospital, everything blurred into bright lights and controlled urgency. It turned out to be false labor. Stress-related, the doctor said gently. My body reacting to pressure. Pressure. That word again. They monitored me overnight. My husband didn't leave my side. At some point, while I was half asleep, I heard him on the phone in the hallway. "Yes, she's okay. No, it wasn't serious. I don't know what caused it." A pause. Then his voice shifted slightly. "Please don't start." Another pause. "Mom, this isn't about family drama." Long silence. Then, very clearly, "No, we're not discussing that right now." When he came back into the room, his expression was tight. "She thinks the stress from all this tension triggered it," he said quietly. "And?" "And she said maybe if things went back to normal, you'd relax." Normal. I let out a soft breath. "What did you say?" I said normal wasn't healthy. The words felt steady. He didn't look conflicted. He looked certain. That night, lying in the hospital bed, I realized something important. A few months ago, if this had happened, he would have quietly agreed with her. Maybe not out loud to me, but internally. He would have wondered if pushing back had been a mistake. Now, he didn't waver. When we got home the next day, he did something unexpected.
He sent a message to the family group chat. She had early contractions. Doctor says stress plays a role. So from now on, we are limiting discussions that create tension. If we visit, it will be calm and respectful. If it's not, we leave. No arguments. He didn't ask me first. He didn't soften it. He just sent it. His sister responded first. That seems dramatic. He replied, it's protective. No apology, no over-explaining. His mother wrote, we would never intentionally stress her. And this time, instead of defending or reassuring, he wrote, then help by respecting boundaries. I watched him set the phone down. He looked at me. I don't care if they're disappointed anymore, he said quietly. I care if you're safe. That sentence settled deep inside me, not because it was romantic, but because it was clear. The baby stayed put, my body calmed, and something else calmed too, the constant low-level anxiety I'd carried for years. 2 weeks later, we agreed to a short visit at their house. 2 hours, afternoon, no meals, no overnight stay. When we arrived, the energy was different. His father greeted me gently. How are you feeling? He asked. Better, I said. He nodded. His sister told her son before we arrived that he needed to use gentle hands. I saw it in how tightly she held his shoulder when he ran toward us. He stopped a few feet away. Hi, he said shyly. Hi, I replied. He didn't touch my stomach. He didn't run at me. He just stood there. And in that small moment, I saw it. Boundaries working. Lunch was simple. Conversation stayed neutral. At one point, his father started to drift into politics. He caught himself mid-sentence. Never mind, he muttered. No one laughed. No one filled the silence. It passed. 2 hours later, we left. No tears in the car, no heavy silence, just quiet relief. Was that okay? My husband asked. Yes, I said honestly. Really? Yes. Because it wasn't perfect, but it was respectful, and respect is what I needed all along. That night, lying in bed, I thought about Margaret again, about that peaceful Christmas morning. The difference now was this. I didn't have to choose between peace and marriage. Peace was beginning to exist inside it. My husband turned toward me in the dark. Thank you, he said softly. For what? For not giving up on me. I smiled faintly. I wasn't fighting you. I was fighting a pattern. He nodded. And I almost let the pattern win. But you didn't. He placed his hand over my stomach again. The baby moved, slow and steady. For the first time since all this started, I wasn't imagining leaving. I wasn't imagining raising this child alone. I was imagining something harder and better. A marriage where both of us stand up. A family that adjusts, or if they don't adjust, one that learns distance without guilt. Because here's the truth I didn't understand before Christmas. I was never afraid of being alone. I was afraid of being alone inside my marriage. And that fear? It's gone. I didn't sleep the night after I told him I needed space. He lay beside me, awake too. I could feel it in the way he breathed, slow on purpose, like he was pretending. Every few minutes he would shift slightly, like he wanted to say something, but didn't know how to begin. In the dark, I placed my hand over my stomach. 5 months. There was a tiny human growing inside me, a tiny person who didn't ask for any of this, a tiny person who deserved safety, peace, joy. Not tension, not fear, not a mother who dreads holidays. The next morning, he made coffee before I even got out of bed. He rarely does that unless he feels guilty. He stood in the kitchen waiting for me to wake up, like a teenager waiting outside the principal's office. We should talk, he said carefully. Yes, I answered. We sat at the table, the same table where we had eaten in silence so many times after returning from his parents' house. The same table where I wiped tears quietly while he washed dishes and said, they didn't mean it that way. He took a deep breath. I know I messed up. I didn't jump to comfort him. That alone made him uneasy. I should have stayed with you, he continued. I should have never gone without you. I didn't want to disappoint them. There it was again. Them. Always them. I looked at him, gently but firmly. You weren't afraid of disappointing me. The words hung heavy in the air. He swallowed. That's not fair, he said, but his voice didn't have conviction. Isn't it? Silence. I told him something I hadn't said out loud before. I was relieved when you left. That one hurt him. I saw it. Relieved? He repeated. Yes, I said. Relieved that I didn't have to brace myself. Relieved that I didn't have to sit at a table where your father makes comments about minorities and then pats my hand like I'm a special exception. Relieved that I didn't have to hear your mother comment on my body while I'm pregnant. Relieved that I didn't have to worry about your nephew running at me again. He flinched at that. I should have stopped that, he whispered. Yes, I said softly. You should have. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. That scared him more than anything. He didn't realize how bad it was for you, he said. I stared at him. You did, I answered quietly. You just didn't want to confront it. He ran a hand over his face. I thought I was keeping the peace. At whose expense? He didn't answer. That day, we talked for hours. Real talking. Not the kind where he explains his parents and I nod. Not the kind where I minimize my feelings so he doesn't feel stuck between sides. I told him about every Christmas I cried in the bathroom, every time I forced myself to cook food from my home country so they could turn it into a joke, and every time I felt like a guest instead of family. I told him what it felt like to sit there while they speculated about my baby's eye color, as if genetics was a personality type contest. And I told him something that shook him. I don't want our child growing up thinking that's normal. He looked at me sharply. What do you mean? I mean, I don't want our child hearing racist comments at dinner. I don't want them learning that you tolerate disrespect to keep things calm. I don't want them learning that love means swallowing pain quietly. That landed. For the first time, he wasn't just hearing about me, he was imagining his child. He leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. I've spent my whole life trying not to upset them, he admitted. I know, I said gently. His father's temper, his mother's manipulation, the golden child sister who could do no wrong. He grew